everyone, and welcome to our webinar on anxiety tonight. The tagline I came up with was, "Will it ever end?" Because sometimes when you're feeling anxiety, it feels like it's just there's no end to the tunnel. And tonight we're going to talk about how we can see an end to the end of that tunnel. And so we're going to start off tonight with the definition, because that's usually what we start off with. And so the dictionary definition of anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. So, it could be maybe your uncertain outcome is something about your future. Or for me, I've had a lot of anxiety about like whether we'd sell our house or whether we'd get the appraisal amount we wanted or things like that. And so it could be something like that. Desire to do something typically accompanied by unease. So you want to do something, but you get uneasy when you think about doing it. So you have the desire, but you still feel uneasy about it. And then there's the psychiatric definition, which is like basically the definition that is about your mental health. And they define it as a mental condition characterized by excessive apprehensiveness about real or perceived threats, typically leading to avoidance behaviors and often to physical symptoms such as increased heart rate and muscle tension. And I've experienced this. Uh, I think many people have. And I think sometimes we don't necessarily recognize it for what it is. Sometimes we just chalk it up to, other things, especially if it's just muscle tension or something, or it's headaches or something, then we just chalk it up to, oh, it must be this or that. And sometimes we don't realize that they could be a sign telling us that we're anxious about something. So I wanted to talk about triggers tonight. And I think like we did one about anxiety and depression, a webinar about that about 2 years ago. And so we went into a lot of different things. And so if you missed that one, feel free to go back. It's going to be in the list of past webinars. But tonight we wanted to talk about some specific stuff that's about um, overcoming anxiety in specific ways. And so tonight, one of those ways is going to be talking about triggers. Triggers of anxiety vary depending on what the underlying fear or apprehension the person has and is trying to avoid. So when it comes to what's going to trigger you, it really depends on what it is that you're trying to avoid. If you're trying to avoid the future, then when you think about the future, you're going to start getting those symptoms in your body, or you're going to start getting tense or stressed. And that's, you know, how that's the trigger, right? Um, Sometimes it's when you're in a situation, sometimes it's a thought, sometimes it's a person. We're going to get into that a little bit more. So, thinking about things that you're fearful of facing, like I said, those are your thoughts. Being in a situation that you're fearful of or apprehensive about being in. So, that could be a social situation or a situation you end up being in. Because there's some situations that we wind up being in that we don't have control over. It's something that's happening around us, and we have to deal with the situation that's before us. And sometimes it's out of our control. And so we have to deal with our anxiety in the midst of what we're in. And confronting a person who causes you stress. And so this could be a person that's hurt you in the past. It can be a person who um, you just don't click with at all. And they're just there. And it causes you stress to be around them because you don't really know how to interact with them. They're not really someone that you want to spend time with. So, what does that look like for you? So we're going to talk about these a little bit more. So I think when it comes to thoughts, I one way to get through those thoughts that trigger my anxiety is to ask my some questions because it helps me to pull myself out of that place. So, number one, what environment am I in every day? Am I in a stressful environment? Am I in a negative environment? Am I creating an environment for myself that fosters positivity? Am I in an environment that fosters positive thinking? Am I in an environment where I can stay calm and peaceful? If not, then I might want to evaluate how to make my environment those ways. And my husband said something pretty key in the car the other day, and that was like when we moved, now he has less problems with his thought life and he has more positive thoughts and he's like on this whole different train. And we realized that it's because we're in a peaceful environment. And it made me realize how much tension there was over stuff with that was going on at our other house. And so it's really interesting how those things come into play. Number two, am I taking the time to focus on positive things going on in my life? So, am I practicing gratitude? Am I being thankful for what is going right in my life? Am I thankful for how God is providing for me? Am I thankful for how um, things are going good? Because not everything in life is stressful. Not everything in life brings on anxiety. So we need to focus on the things that are positive in order to keep our mind focused in the right direction. And then the third set of questions that I ask myself is, are these thoughts even true? Because if they're not true, then I need to dismiss them and not give them any more time to stew in my head. I need to let them go. Do they serve me? Same thing. If they don't serve me, I need to let them go and like not focus on them. Is there another perspective I could have? That usually requires me to talk to another person because it's sometimes hard to get out of that thinking space yourself. So sometimes you have to ask a friend. Sometimes you have to ask a spouse. Sometimes you have to ask one of your kids. Sometimes you have to ask a friend, right? There's so many different people that you could talk to that could give you a different perspective. You could ask a pastor, you could ask a teacher, a counselor. The list goes on. They could give you a different perspective of what you're going through. And having a different perspective can actually help you let go of that anxiety because they might see it as an opportunity. They may see it as a challenge for you to grow. They may see it as something entirely different than what you have seen it as. And instead of it holding you back, it could move you forward. Another question is, what does the Bible say about it? The Bible has a lot to say about things that we go through on a daily basis. So, one thing I do is if I'm struggling in a certain area, I will type into the computer scriptures about so and so, and they'll pop up. Or I also have like little books that have topics in them, so you can look in those, and they'll give you just scripture verses on those topics. And it's pretty handy to have those things. And it's surprising how much the word has to say about our lives. That, sometimes I think we miss how much the Bible actually says about our everyday life, about how we feel, what we're going through, the thoughts that we think. Jesus wasn't foreign to any of this. He was human. He got to experience all of it. And so it shouldn't surprise us that there's a lot of information in there about how we do life. And then the other question is, how would I advise a friend on how to deal with these thoughts? I think sometimes we're really great at helping other people, but not so great at helping ourselves. We get into, oh, fix it mode with other people. But when we come to ourselves, we're just kind of like, "Ugh, why can't I make it through this?" So sometimes thinking about what I would say to someone else helps me figure out what I can do for myself. So the next section we're going to talk about are the situations, and situations are many times unavoidable. So what can you do when you're in a triggering situation? So the first thing you want to do is breathe deeply and take a second to assess whether you're really in danger or not. So sometimes we're triggered when we are actually facing something that's somewhat dangerous. So for instance, a situation could be it's after a movie, it's dark out, you're walking to your car. Are you really in danger or are you not? Right? So that might be a time when you're triggered for being anxious about whether or not somebody is like gonna, rob you or whatever on your way to your car because you don't know. And so that is like one where you're really in danger. So if you're really in danger, then I would say book it, like get to your car. But if there's no one around and you've assessed the situation, then you can take your deep breath and slowly walk to your car, right? So I would say in that case, you need to assess. And once you know, then you know what to do. And number two, if no danger is present, assess your ability to handle the situation. So in this case, right, you're thinking about, okay, can I handle this by myself? And if you can't, then ask for help from someone. So let's say you're in a situation where someone has hurt you in the past, they're trying to talk to you, and you are just not in a place where you can handle it at that time. You need more healing or you need to do more before you can talk to this person. um, then you could actually seek help from someone. So, especially let's say you're at church or something, you can always like ask someone to start talking to you so that you're engaged with someone, or you can talk to a pastor to help you deal with this situation with this other person. So, there's a lot of ways that you can handle it if you're not able to do it yourself at that time. Um, and number three, if you're so triggered that you cannot deal with it at this time, the best way is to walk away and reassess and address it later. So, using that same church situation, if there's no one nearby that you can ask to help, and you're just like, I can't deal with this, I can't deal with this, best thing to do is to walk away and sit down, reassess it, and address it later when you are in a space where you can deal with that situation. And don't let that be another stressor for you. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to address these things later. I'll give you a perfect example. Um, I've had a situation with my brother, and there were a lot of times where I didn't address it because I wasn't ready. And then when I was ready, I talked to him about it and I told him why I walked away and why I withdrew. And I think it went okay. I mean, he's civil, so I think it went okay. Um, but yeah, things happen, right? And you've got to deal with them as you go. People, people are tricky because they can cause you a great deal of anxiety. And then there's people who cause you none, right? So it really depends on the person that you're talking about. So when there's people that have hurt you, even thinking about seeing them or thinking about talking to them can cause so much anxiety just to think about being in contact with them again. Whether it's a phone call, whether it's seeing them in person, whether it's even texting them, it can cause so much anxiety. And I just want you to know that there are many times when people don't even know that they've caused us pain or hurt us. And you need to determine if this is the case. And sometimes the only way to do that is to ask. So, once again, going back to that example in situations, if that person has hurt you and you haven't fully healed and you're not ready to face them yet, then you might need to take that time to heal the wound before you can talk to them. And do that because you want to be able to have a calm, clear discussion about it with them, especially if they don't know that they've done something to hurt you, right? You want to have this calm discussion where you can actually clearly articulate what it is that hurt you. And I think when you do that, it really does help bring relationships back together. Um, there's some people that we just don't like being around, so take the time to ask God if this is someone you're supposed to get to know and then follow through. Sometimes that's hard. There's this one person in particular I'm thinking of, and I met him 2 years ago, and he just rubbed me the wrong way, and I could not figure out why. And so one day, I really felt like God was nudging me to get to know him. And I was like, why? Why do I have to get to know this person? But I just really felt like God wanted me to. And so I was like, okay, okay. So I asked him about his life and his story. And when I did, I found out why God wanted me to be part of his life. And ever since then, like I don't see him that often, but when I do, every time he tells me all about his life, he tells me what's going on. He told, I just ran into him a few days ago, and he talked about how he was able to forgive this person, and he was so excited about that, and he asked me to pray for them, pray for him, and it was so great because I was so surprised at how no time seemed to have passed in our conversation, even though I hadn't seen him in like 8, 9 months. And so it's pretty cool when that happens. And to think of that just a few years ago, he was a person that I really didn't want to get to know. But God used me in his life because before I came along, he really didn't have anything to do with God. And so it's really exciting to see how that has changed in his life. And God wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't obedient. So it's pretty cool. And so there's times when God asks us, you know, to do those things. And then, you'd be surprised how easy it is to be around those people afterwards, right? Sometimes it's just awkward in the beginning because, well, you don't really know them. So it's really hard to interact with somebody you don't really know. And number three, there are going to be people that you run into that might be openly hostile. The best thing you can do for them is to pray for them and maintain your distance, especially if you feel unsafe. If you're in an unsafe situation, do not let them get close to you because you could be risking your health or your life. So be wise, but still pray for them because you never know what God can do, right? And there's probably other categories of people and situations and thoughts, other questions you can ask yourself. But these are just some of the things that I do for myself that I thought would be very helpful for you guys. And so here are some ways on how we can deal with triggers. But I want you to remember something, that triggers are a warning system that something's wrong. So dealing with the trigger without dealing with the root cause won't cause them to stop entirely because the next time that that comes up, you'll get triggered again. So you need to realize that you can use the trigger to help you deal with the underlying cause. So that's number one. Number two, get to the root cause of the issue. And then number three, deal with that root, right? Don't just let it keep going. Because if you can do those three, then you won't be triggered for that same thing anymore. Number four is change thought patterns or your mindset. And that's something that takes time and practice. It's interesting because when you have negative thought patterns, they happen naturally because as humans, our mind naturally goes to what's negative. And so it actually takes practice and focus in order to switch that to positive thoughts or positive mindset. And even that gratitude thing that I was talking about earlier, you need to actually think about it and put it into practice. Others, the negative stuff comes so easily, but you actually have to focus to set those positive things in motion. And I think that's good in some ways because it shows us that we do have control. It's just we have to be proactive about it and we actually have to do it. Seeing it from another perspective, like I said, that usually comes from a different person unless you have the ability in that moment to be objective and look at it from an outside perspective. Sometimes that's hard to do when you're in it. That's why I said ask other people. But some people are really good at this, that they can, sit down and go, wait, okay, let's take a step back and look at this from an outside view instead of right in the middle of this and see what it looks like from there. And then number six, seek answers in God's word. And that is a key one for me. Um, there's a lot of times when I'm triggered and I just go to God's word and it calms me right down because there's so many things that the word has to say about anxiety. And I'm going to share just a few of you, share a few of them with you tonight. Um, there's a lot. I only did like some of them, so be encouraged by these. First Peter 5, 6 to 7. Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you at the proper time, having cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you, cares about you. In some um, versions, it says for you, but it means the same thing. And so we can cast our anxiety on him, and he literally can carry it for us. I think about a time when I was in Bible college, my best friend, he wanted to help me, and I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. And he was like, he saw how much it was weighing on me. And he asked me if he could carry my burdens for me for a day. And I was like, as if you can do that. And he was like, no, I will think about them. I will pray for them, but you have to give them completely to me and not pray for them, not think about them and let them go. And I said, okay. And so I did. And it was amazing. I didn't, I actually followed through with it and I actually had peace and I actually had an amazing day. And I was like, wow, this was amazing. The next morning, he was not so good. And he gave them all back to me quite excitedly. And he's like, I don't know how you do this every day. This is so much. And I was like, I know, right? But as soon as he walked away, the Lord was like, if you gave them to me, you wouldn't have to take them back. And it's so true, right? We don't have to take them back when you give them to God because he doesn't get tired. He doesn't get um, overworked by it. He just takes them on himself because he can. And we don't have to carry those. It's amazing. So, from that experience, I know that it is possible to let go of those things, but we have to actually let go. And I think that's the hard part for us. We we think we want to let go, but then we keep one finger on it. And then the next time it comes up, we grab it and pull it back. And God's just like, you don't have to do that. Just let me have it. So I encourage you, let him have it. Give it all to him. Philippians 4, 6 to 7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and pleading with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So there we go to the thanksgiving. That's the gratitude piece, right? We need to be grateful for what we have and stay focused on that. And know that we can go to God with everything and anything. And we don't have to be anxious about it. By prayer and giving it to Him and being thankful for what we have, then He gives us peace in exchange. That's pretty amazing. Isaiah 41:10, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will always help you. I will also uphold you with my righteous right hand. God is always with you. You have nothing to be afraid of. We have the God of the entire universe with us. Do you realize what that means, right? You never have to worry. You never have to be afraid. You never have to fear because you've got God with you. And with Him, He makes all things possible. Proverbs 12:25. Anxiety in a person's heart weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. You know, if we focus on our anxiety and we let it just swarm in our heads, it will weigh us down. And it's interesting that a good word makes it glad. Well, scripture is that good word, right? So it just reinforces the idea that we need to get back into the word and let the word speak to us. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Matthew 6:34. And sometimes we get so caught up in, oh, is the future going to hold? What about tomorrow? We were waiting for the appraisal on our house, and I was getting all up like, oh, what if it doesn't come in today? What if it doesn't come in today? And you know what? It all worked out, right? And so we need to let it go and not worry about it. Worrying about it won't actually do anything because it's not going to change anything. It's not going to make it better. All it's going to do is cause you tension and stress in your body, and it's going to drive you crazy, but it's not going to do anything good for you. So let each day come as it will. Psalm 55:22. Cast your burden upon the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken. Have I, I'm Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified nor dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And one last one. 1 John 4:18-19. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear involves punishment, and the one who fears is not perfected in love. We love because He first loved us. To know that God fully loves us and He is there to walk with us and He is there to lead, guide, and protect us. What do we have to fear, right? He loved us so much, He sent His Son so that we don't have to be afraid, that we can just rest in that perfect love. And that's such an amazing thing. And so that is where I will leave you, and I will pass it over to Laura.
Thanks for sharing, Connie. One thing came to mind as you were sharing, and it was a experience that I had, and I have struggled with anxiety for most of my younger years and off and on in my adulthood. And this one particular time I remember was so heavy. It was so stressful. There was so much uncertainty and insecurity in my life. And I found myself just absolutely consumed by anxiety. And Connie, I don't know if you remember this story, but Aunt Elvina had passed away, and we had gone to Saskatchewan to take care of her estate. We had to clear out the house and put it on the market. And at that time, it was very stressful. It was the middle of summer. It was the busiest time of our year. I had all four boys, and I took them with me to Saskatchewan. And, it was great to be there for the 4 days, to be with family, to reminisce, all of those things. But on my drive home, you know, I was thinking about everything that was going to be waiting for me when I got home, everything that was on my plate, everything that I had basically forgotten those 4 days that I was there. And the anxiety was just so heavy on me. And as I was driving down the highway, we came up to this truck that said wide load, right? And so we're like, oh, wow, what does this truck have on it? And as we started driving, like, and this was literally the longest truck I've ever seen. And, obviously when you see a wide load truck, you picture that there's going to be a massive load on this vehicle, right? And so we're driving along and I'm looking and I'm like, why was there a truck saying wide load? And we're driving along this truck, and it had two massive trailers, the biggest trailers I've ever seen. And we're driving by it. And the whole time there's absolutely nothing on his trailer. And then we get past the first trailer, we get to the second trailer, and halfway through the second trailer, there is something on that truck. And it was strapped down for safety. And when I saw it, I burst out in laughter. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. Nobody's going to believe me. And so I pulled ahead of the truck. I pulled off the road, and my children were with me. Boaz was in the seat beside me. We pulled off to the side of the road. We let the truck pass. And I said to Boaz, this time we're going to videotape this. Right. And so we did. We came behind the truck again. We drove and we videotaped the whole thing. I have a video. Maybe I'll share it on our community page. But as we were driving by, the thing that truck was carrying, the wide load that truck was carrying, was a tiny, small Tonka truck. And as we passed the truck driver, he waved at us with a knowing smile, and we smiled back. And God spoke to me. And similar to what he said to you, Connie, he said, Laura, all of this anxiety that you're feeling, all of this pressure that you're feeling, he said, to you, it's like a wide load, like a massive like load that's so big that you can't carry it. But he said, when you give it to me, it's like this truck, this massive semi truck with two trailers, and its load is a little tiny Tonka truck. He said, when you give me your trials, your fears, your anxieties, your insecurities, when you give it to me and you trust me, then it's like this little tiny Tonka truck. It's so easy. And that was an awakening for me. That was a moment where I was just like, you know what, God, you're right. And just like it says in Matthew, if you are weary and burdened, come and lay those at the feet of Jesus, because his burden is light and his yoke is easy. And that's what we need to do, right? That's what this is all about. And that's why Jesus was so clear about us not living in anxiety, us not carrying these burdens, and us giving them over to Christ. So what I want to talk about is the difference between living with anxiousness about your future versus living in the moment. And this is really the thing that God has been challenging me on in the past 10 years. And I've been growing in this concept of how do you live in the moment? And when you do live in the moment, how does that release anxiety from your life? And so I want to go into this just a little bit more. So when we are anxious about the future, many things will happen in our mind, in our heart, in our bodies, in our spirit, in our soul. We'll feel fearful about what will come in the future. And I can guarantee you that if you struggle with anxiety, you struggle with fear. You struggle with feeling insecure about your future, about what's coming next, about how you're going to provide, about, even maybe where you're going to live, maybe what's going to happen to your kids. You know, how are you going to make it through this next week? How are you going to pay your bills at the end of the month? Whatever that looks like, that is part of what anxiety is. That's what it looks like. We have this fear mentality about, what's going to come next. We don't feel secure. We don't have an understanding that God is our faithful Father and He'll provide for us. Or we know it, but we don't. It's almost like we know it in our head, but we don't believe it in our heart, right? Another thing is we'll be unable to be present in the moment. And I'll use two examples. Have you ever been talking to someone and, you're sharing something with them and they're physically there, they're even nodding their head as if they're listening, and but it's literally like they're 1,000 miles away because they're thinking of other things. That's kind of how that is. Like when we are so focused on the anxieties that we're feeling, the fears that we're feeling, the insecurities that we're feeling, it's almost like we are completely distant from our reality. We are 1,000 miles away from what's happening right in front of us. And, you know, I'm sure that you can relate to that story of being in a situation like that, or maybe it's been you. Like, I've done this. I've been in conversations with people, and something they say triggers a thought, which then I get started thinking about, oh, yes, that triggered this thought about tomorrow, which then triggered a thought about, the next week and the next year. And I'm thinking about all of these things. And then all of a sudden I realize that this person's been talking to me for a couple minutes and I have no idea what they've said. Right. And how bad do I feel in those moments? But it's because I allowed myself to be drawn into, like Connie said, those triggered moments and follow that path of anxiety or fear or worry about my future. Another thing we'll be is internally focused. We'll be focused on ourselves. You know, what's going to happen to me? Maybe it's something about our health. Maybe it's something about a personal goal that we have that we feel like we can achieve. Our focus when we are dealing with anxiety will be internal. We'll also feel inadequate for what lies ahead. A lot of the times when I'm feeling anxiety, it's because I feel like I'm not equipped for what is going to come, that I can't handle it, that, you know, whatever comes, I'm not going to be ready for it. Another thing we do is we project worst case scenarios and believe that it will become our reality. Sometimes we take a moment that was difficult, hard, and we project it to be that this is going to last forever. Or, we might have a worry about something happening and, we almost like daydream about those bad things happening when the chances of those things actually occurring in our life is almost impossible, right? And it also causes us to experience physical symptoms that cause us to want to avoid facing what is ahead. And Connie mentioned this, such as headaches, stomach aches, panic attacks, racing heart. These are all signs of anxiety in our life. And I mean, I don't like any of these things. It also can create chronic physical ailments when your anxiety is prolonged. So if you have been experiencing anxiety for a long time, you have a hard time getting off that proverbial hamster wheel, it will actually cause chemical changes in your body that's going to cause things to, start breaking down, not working properly, causing some chronic issues in your life. And, these are all things we want to avoid, right? This is things that God has said to us that we can live without if we choose not to live an anxious life. You might also feel nervous that you will not measure up. that you won't be good enough. You could also be unsure of yourself because it's a new situation. I usually, when I'm being faced with a new situation, I do feel anxiety. And I was actually thinking about this week as Connie and I were preparing for today. And there was, I took on a new role in my life. And at first, when I had to do this role, every single week that I had to go do it, I had so much anxiety. Um, and it really was irrational. There was really nothing to be anxious about, but I had so much anxiety up until the time when I had to go do the task, all the time through doing the task, till the very moment that I was done the task and going back home. That entire time I felt anxiety. It was irrational. It had no purpose. And I was just thinking about that today, and I was just like, wait a minute. I don't feel that anxiousness about that anymore. And what changed? Nothing has changed except for my mindset, right? Every single thing about that situation is exactly the same, and it has been the same for the last five years. But something in me has changed, right? And that's why, like Connie said, it a lot of times it comes down to what our thoughts are, what we're focusing on, what we're meditating on, what we're allowing our hearts and our minds to, picture about our future. And you might feel insecurity about how you will handle situations that you're faced with in the future. And, all of these are real, but I have come to understand that I don't have to feel anxiety, right? There are moments, of course, if you're in real danger, if there's a real situation, anxiety it was actually created by God to alarm us for things that really do need our attention. But most of the time, I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, the anxiety that we feel is not merited. And I saw this saying, and it really challenged me when I'm in a situation where I feel insecure, I feel like I don't measure up, I feel like maybe I'm going to make a mistake, right? This mindset that, I might not succeed, but to have this mindset that, what, sometimes I will win, but sometimes I will learn. So instead of saying like I'm going to fail, I'm not going to do well, this isn't going to go right, my mindset has shifted to be, what, if I don't succeed, if this doesn't go well, then it's going to be an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for me to grow. It's an opportunity for me to exercise, an area in my life where maybe I do have some weaknesses, but I can flip it and switch it into something that is a positive, right? Sometimes I will win, I will succeed, but other times it will be a learning moment for me. So I want to talk about living in the moment. What does that look like? And how can we do that? I love to live in the moment. And the more I do, the more joy, peace, uh, hope I feel with my life. And like I said earlier, my circumstances aren't different. They haven't changed, but I have changed. My mindset has changed. And the way that I look at situations has changed. And when I live in the moment, it causes me to look forward to what's to come with excitement, right? To actually anticipate that whatever is going to come next, God's there with me and he's going to turn it into something good. So really, like all of those scriptures that Connie read, they're so true. If we trust God with the outcome of our everyday life, then, it doesn't matter what comes, we can look forward to it. You'll be able to be present in each moment and be able to fully enjoy them as they come. This, for me, really became apparent with my relationship with my kids. When they were first born, when they were little, I kept thinking, well, you know, it'll be awesome when they get to this age. It'll be awesome when we can start doing this together. And I was always looking ahead. And what I realized is because I was always looking ahead, I was missing the moments right now. And if I could turn back time and do all of those years over again, I would live in the moment. I would enjoy every single second that I had, every smile, every laughter, every ridiculous moment, every moment that, even sleepless nights. I would realize how precious it is to have those infant babies in your arms and have them so dependent on you, and to just be able to take the moments as they come and realize that, there's so many blessings in those moments. But when we're focused for the future and focused on what's coming next, we miss everything right here. One other thing that will happen when we live in the moment is we become externally focused. We start noticing things around us. We notice the people around us. We'll start noticing the sights, the smells, the tastes. There's been times where, I'm so anxious, I'm so busy, I'm so motivated to go do something that I'll have a meal and I didn't even enjoy it, right? Maybe it's even my favorite meal, but I go through the entire meal and at the end of the meal, like I didn't enjoy a single bite and I didn't even know, I can't even tell you what it tasted like. And then there's other times where it's like I sit down and I'm just present in the moment. And every single bite, I'm just like, oh, this is so amazing. This is so delicious. I'm so thankful for this meal that was provided for me. And see how that changes it? I don't know if you've ever experienced that and just have been in the moment and embraced everything that would come. There's days where it's like I'll be driving in the car and I'm so motivated and I'm so thinking about all the things, and then Holy Spirit will just say, Laura, just be in the moment with me. And I'll take a deep breath, I'll quiet my mind, and I'll just start paying attention, and I'll start hearing the birds chirping. I'll feel the breeze in the trees. I'll smell the aroma of the flowers, and I realize that, what, this moment is incredible. I have been given such an amazing moment right now, but I would have missed it completely because I was just thinking about the next thing. I was just thinking about, oh, I have to do this before, tonight, so that tomorrow is this. And, what about next week? And what about the next month? Right? We miss out on all of these situations, all of these things that God wants us to enjoy. Another thing is we recognize that any situation will either be an opportunity to use our skill or to learn to learn new skills. Just like I had said with that saying, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. Every situation, either you're going to be equipped for it and you're going to know what to do and it's going to be a breeze, or it's going to be an opportunity for you to learn something. Either way, that's a win-win. Either way, it doesn't matter what comes. If you look at it from that perspective, then embrace every moment. If you don't know something, then take it as an opportunity to learn something, to glean some information, to become better than you are right now. It doesn't have to be, an avoidance that you want to not do those things because you're not equipped, you're not skilled, you're afraid of being embarrassed. Like, those are all things that are going to limit you and keep you stuck in anxiety. But if you want to step out of anxiety and you want to start living life to the fullest, then you need to live in the moment. You need to embrace every moment as it comes. Another thing I do is I ask myself, what's the worst thing that can happen? Right? When I'm really feeling quite anxious, I just I rationalize with myself, okay, honestly, in the situation, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen? I think about it. Well, this could happen. And then I think, well, if that happens, then I'll deal with it when it happens, right? And I almost get to the point where I'm like, okay, the worst case scenario isn't that bad anymore, right? It's something that we can deal with. It's something that God can do something about. And then I realized that, you know what, really, I can handle anything that comes my way. It doesn't matter what comes. I can handle it. I have God with me. He has the answers and the solutions for everything I'll ever face. And another thing that I experience, which I believe I mentioned already, is I start feeling physical symptoms that encourage me to live my life to the fullest in every moment, such as joy, peace, love, contentment, confidence, excitement, anticipation, inspiration. I have expectation and hope. And these are the emotions that come when you can let go of anxiety and you can truly live in the moment. And these emotions actually make me want to live in the moment more. And when I'm not experiencing these, it's a sign to me that, you know what, Laura, you need to check your thoughts. You need to check your heart. Where are you at with this? Are you partnering with anxiety again? Are you getting too wrapped up in your thoughts and into, you know, the what ifs and, you know, how you feel that you're not competent, right? And shift it. Stop in that moment and take, like Connie said, evaluate and rationalize and, you know, t- tell yourself the truth. You know, bring yourself down off those anxiety perches and learn to live in the moment. And another thing that this allows me to do is walk with confidence that no matter what comes, I will be able to overcome. And when I live in the moment, that's what it's like for me. Living in the moment and embracing each moment, even the difficult ones as they come, opens you up to truly experiencing life. And, you know, when I live in the moment, it's as if nothing else exists, nothing else matters. And, you know, for example, I've been I've been out with some girlfriends, and sometimes they're like, "Oh, you know, I'm so sorry that, you know, we're having this coffee. I know you're so busy. I know you got a lot on the go. This is probably a distraction." And I say to them, "Are you kidding me? Those things can wait. Right now, the only thing that matters is you. The only thing that matters right now is the fact that I get to spend time with you. And this is all that I'm going to think about right now. I'm not thinking about the next hour. I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not thinking about next week. I'm thinking about right now and the fact that I get to spend time with a good friend over a cup of tea. And a lot of times, you know, we're out in a beautiful environment and just enjoy the moment. You know, it's in those places where everything else literally fades away. And I'm able to be present and, you know, embrace it for what it is, because I believe that God has awesome blessings in our life every day, but we miss it because we're so wrapped up, we're so anxious, we're so fearful about what's coming next that we're missing everything that's happening here. And I think honestly, from my experience, if you can if you can grasp this concept and start, you know, putting it into practice in your life, you're going to see many things shift. You're going to see even your perspective on the difficulties shift, right? I've gotten to the place where it's like, yeah, that's coming up tomorrow and that's going to be difficult, but it's okay. I can handle it, you know? And I go forward knowing that I've got what it takes. And if I don't have the skill set, God's going to provide it. He's going to teach me. He's going to bring someone along the way to help. And it's all okay. Living the moment. My my encouragement to you is a lot of times, because we're so forward focused, if we don't prepare ahead of time, that's why I think it's hard for us just to let it go, right? So for example, if I have an event coming up in a week, right? Instead of procrastinating and putting it off, you know, dedicate time ahead of time to prepare for what's ahead so that, you know what, you're not constantly worried about it and you're not, you know, not preparing for it. Because when I can prepare ahead of time, and I even sometimes have a bin, and I'm like, okay, I need to take this next week. I just immediately put it in the bin, and I forget about it. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to put it on any lists. It's already taken care of. And so dedicating time ahead of time to prepare for what is coming up is going to allow for you to be more present in everyday moments and not be concerned about those things. Another thing I want to mention is if you find yourself getting distracted with thoughts of the future, stop, take a deep breath, take a few minutes to calm yourself down, and then just look around. Look around at your life. Sometimes when I find myself getting rounded up like that, or like anxious or whatever, I'm usually at home. And I've done this. I stop and I take some deep breaths, and then I just look around. And when I look around, my property, I look at the landscaping, I look at the beautiful colors, I close my eyes and I listen and I hear the beautiful birds. I feel the breeze. It just helps me put everything into perspective, that, what, I can handle this. I can take it. I can do this. And one other thing I want to mention is, really avoid multitasking, because it will pull you away from being present in the moment. And one example from that is like, if my husband's calling me on the phone, but I'm still trying to do an email and text and talk to my son, am I being present to any of it? No. My husband was talking to me and I didn't hear a single word he said because my mind was somewhere else. So honestly, the best thing is, if you're in a conversation with a friend, then be in that conversation with that friend, experience it, hear what they're saying, feel the emotion of it, be present, and contribute the best that you can in that moment. And then the next moment, be present in that moment, and do that in every moment of your life. And you're going to see the shift. You're going to see the anxiety lift, and you're going to see how your mindset about your life and the things that are ahead will shift. Your perspective is going to change. I found this quote, and it says, paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to the unfolding experience moment by moment. And I felt like that summed up what I'm trying to say very eloquently, that this is where I think the key is. That if we can do that, just pay attention on purpose to every moment, have no expectation, and live the experiences as God brings them into our life every single moment, I believe it will bring us peace. I believe it will bring us contentment. I believe that it will cause the anxiety to leave. And this has been my experience. When I have lived this out, when I live this out in my life, that is the byproduct. That is what happens for me. And that's my hope for you, that you would experience that as well. So we're going to go into our activation, and surprise, surprise, we're going to be doing an activation about living in the moment. New things take practice. And if you aren't used to this, if living in the moment isn't something that you are used to, it's not something that you readily do, that your mind normally goes to the negative, it normally goes to maybe what you're not good at, your insecurity, how things are not going to go the way you want, then today we're going to shift that and we're going to practice what it feels like to live in the moment, where we let go of everything and we just experience this moment exactly the way that it is. And so we want you to let go of everything that you came into this webinar carrying. Maybe that was fear of your future. Maybe that's fear of a diagnosis that you have. Maybe your finances are out of control. Maybe you just got a phone call from a family member, and you are concerned about something related to them, whatever it is, whatever you're carrying, whatever those anxieties are that you have been carrying, we want you to let it go for the next 5 minutes. And we want you to be present in this moment. And some ways that you can do that is by asking some of these questions. Become more aware of yourself. What are you experiencing right now? And and think of it in terms of all of your senses. What are you experiencing right now in your physical body? Maybe in your heart, maybe your emotions, maybe in your environment. What can you sense with your senses? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you smelling, tasting, touching? What are some of the emotions that you're experiencing? Maybe even as I've been sharing, what are some of the emotions that you're experiencing? What, when Connie and I have been sharing, has there been anything that stood out to you? And how is that impacting you? What what are those lessons that you want to take away from today? What are new opportunities that you can embrace from what you've learned today? And another one is you can think about what things are going well in your life right now. And how can you continue those or make them even better going forward? So those are some questions that you can really just meditate on and ponder right now. And, you know, tr- let go of everything else and just be present in this moment. What is it that you're experiencing? What is it that you're feeling? Maybe what is it that God is speaking to you right now? Quiet your heart and you maybe even ask God to speak to you. What does he want to say to you in this moment right now? And Connie, as you can put some music on, we'll just take this 5 minutes and do this activation. As we close up today, I want to just share with you a couple keys to remember from what Connie and I shared. The first one is triggers tell us that there's something we need to deal with, and pay attention to them because they are a warning sign. If you are constantly being triggered with anxious thoughts and insecurities and fear, then there's something that you can go to God with to find some healing and resolution and have him resolve those for you. Like Connie said, if you get to the root and you deal with that root, then that trigger will no longer impact you. But you can use those triggers to recognize that there's something that you need to look at. Number two, anxiety does not have to rule your life. You have the power to change it. You can change it by focusing on the truth, the positive, and by having gratitude. And number three, learning to live in the moment will help you combat anxiety. It will help refocus your attention on what is absolutely important in the moment, and it will awaken you to what true living means. And I wanted to close with this scripture, John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal and to kill and destroy. I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. And isn't it interesting that when we feel anxious thoughts, it's usually along the lines of what bad is going to come in our life. And when you think of this scripture, that's right in line with the enemy's ploy, the enemy's schemes. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And are we going to be partnering with his heart and his desire for our life? Are we going to, refocus and come in alignment with what God has for us, that he came, that you might have life and that you would have it abundantly, that there would be no end and nothing to restrict that life in you. And so I pray that you would take these keys and be able to shift the anxiety in your life into something positive and something that's going to allow you to grow. We want to just go over a few announcements. We have our next webinar coming up next month on August 7th, and we are going to be talking about suicide. And, um, this is often a topic we avoid. We don't want to talk about it. But Connie and I have really been doing a lot of preparing for this, and we're looking forward to sharing, because both Connie and I have encountered this. This is something that we struggled with for many, many years, and we've walked through this, and God has really brought us some victory in this, and we want to share our story. We want to share what we've learned. We want to share hope. And so, if you struggle with this, or someone who does, or maybe you just want to understand, maybe you never really struggled with this and you don't understand how someone could get to the point where they just feel like there's nothing worth living for. Join us next month. We'd love for you to join us and for you to hear what God's put on our heart. I also want to remind you of our upcoming No Sub Community Barbecue. If you haven't registered yet, please do so. That helps us with numbers of preparing and having enough food and activities and all sorts of fun stuff that we are preparing. Because this is a fundraising event, this year we did put a cost for admission. It's a small amount, and that will just go towards helping cover some of the costs and also to raise some funds. And please bring your entire families. This is an event that is fun for the whole family. Connie and I have been brainstorming some new potential things that we hope to be able to pull out this year. And so it's going to be a ton of fun. And we'd love to see all of you there. And if you know someone, you'd love to get them connected to our community, this is a great opportunity to get them connected to this community through this barbecue. So please tell others about it and invite your friends to come as well. I believe we have 9 spaces left for our retreat. So if you have been wondering or thinking that you might like to come, or you know someone who would really benefit from coming to this retreat in October, please pass this on, because I know these spaces will fill up. And we've been praying that God would bring the right people that need to be there. And so whoever that might be, if you know someone and you just feel God really pressing on your heart that this would be a great opportunity for them, please share it with them and let them know about this opportunity. I also wanted to remind everyone that I do go live on Facebook at 6 a.m. Monday to Friday. If you can't join me live, you can also watch the recordings on the Facebook group, the Passionate Pursuit Facebook group, or on my YouTube channel, the No One Stands Alone YouTube channel. And it's interesting that we've been talking about this topic of anxiety because the things that God's been putting on my heart for the last couple of days is really in line with this, and how we can, take our thoughts captive and really experience all that God has for us. And so if you haven't tuned in before, feel free to jump right in. You can find them on the the YouTube channel, or you can also like the Facebook page and start listening in every day. And this month, I think one is being released today. We have 2 podcasts a month that we release, and these are really great opportunity for you to listen on the go. And we talk about similar topics that we do on the webinar, but we share from our heart. We share from our personal experience. It's more conversational style, and you will get a lot out of it. So we encourage you to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode, and that you listen in. So thank you once again for joining us this month, and we look forward to you joining us again next month.